Hey you are listening to the Latter-day Ladypreneur podcast. This is Sarah Allred, your host. Dive into a sweet mix of interviews with business gurus, as well as solo episodes with me about the business lessons that have transformed me along this journey, with some sweet connections to Nephi, Esther, and all your other scriptural heroes thrown in the mix. Look, over a year ago, I was paralyzed. Business profits were almost non-existent, and it seemed pointless to keep spending hours on this business of mine when I could have made more at McDonald's. The most painful part, as I felt the hustle of it all, was taking my focus away from those I love most, in my home. So why the paralysis? Why couldn't I just walk away? Look, I knew deep down in my soul that God had called me to do this, to grow a business, to uncover a way to inspire others to do the same. So how could both exist? A thriving business and a thriving home? That's when I met a mentor that opened my eyes to a whole new way of doing business. A system that has brought more money, more time, and more impact into my life in the past 6 months than I've ever had in nearly 10 years of business. This fancy system is called funnels, and I want you on board with me. If your time is feeling crunched, your ideas of how to help more people are slim, or you simply need to stop reinventing your business every single day, you need this fancy and profitable approach to business called funnels. I've packed everything I've learned in the past year that has brought me connections, profitability, a loyal following, but more importantly, the feeling at home I have ached for a decade into my life. You can do it too. It doesn't matter what business you're in. Build your business through the world of funnels in just 45 days with the Funnel Blueprint Challenge at sarahgracelive.com/challenge. Bonus, for a limited time, your seat in the challenge includes a free buddy pass because everyone needs a business buddy. Keep moving forward. Your heavenly parents need you and your gifts, and so does the world. Now, enjoy the podcast. Hey, you, it is Sarah. Welcome back to the Latter-day Ladypreneur podcast. Really thrilled to have Kate, my mentor, here on the other side of the podcast audio. You may not know Katie. If you don't know Katie, today is your lucky day. If you do know Katie, it's your extra lucky day because you know it's in store. I'm going to introduce her really quick, but first I just want her to say hi. Katie, welcome.
Hey, Sarah, and to everybody who's listening, I am so excited to talk to you today.
So this is pretty amazing. I feel really lucky because I have actually worked with her in a group setting and a little bit one-on-one, and sheer brilliance comes out of this woman, especially because she has honed the spirit into what she is doing, and it is tangible. I've interviewed you before, and to this day, it is still one of the most downloaded podcasts of all 180 that we ever did. And that says something.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
Yeah.
No surprise. But let me tell you a little bit about Katie. So Katie Richardson, she is known as the mother of four who built a multi-million-dollar international empire from a sketch and a giant leap of faith. Oh, I love this story. Oh my gosh. She's been featured on the Ellen DeGeneres Show, the Rachel Ray Show, Today's Show, and even on the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine through her innovation products like the Pudge Tub. You know, okay, people, you have to have this. It's that awesome baby tub that fits in your bathroom sink. It's like genius. She's been super blessed to impact the lives of over 1 million customers. Her products are sold in Target, Costco, Nordstrom, and in 26 countries. Today, Katie coaches entrepreneurs who are committed to building a business that adds real value in the world, and listen to this carefully, without sacrificing family, faith, and fitness. Okay, Katie, you're kind of a big deal, right?
Thanks, Sarah. I know. When you read that, it's like, wow, who is this woman? I'd like to meet her. I feel that.
I love that. And I have met you on a number of occasions, and it's the real deal. There's something that stands out specifically about you that I want my listeners to know. And that is, if you feel kind of lost in business, if you feel kind of confused, if you feel like, I just don't have the motivation that I need, if there is any person on this planet that I want to talk to, it is Katie Richardson. It is you. Why do you think that is?
Well, because That's another piece everyone needs to know. You just gave my highlight reel, but they also need to know that I wasn't planning on doing most of those things when I got started. I had very small thinking. I was a student at BYU. I graduated in product design. I love product design. I love making things and taking an idea that I had in my head and turning into reality. That was the most exhilarating thing in the world to me. And I got married to somebody who's also a product designer. And, we started a family pretty young. I was 24. And I thought I was done with like that piece of my life. And I would just be crafting at the table from that point on, which is fine. It's great. It's awesome. But God had a different plan for me, and I really resisted it for a long time, Sarah. So if somebody is feeling like, here's that success story and feels so far from it and feels lost and confused, I was right there. I was right there with you. And I know you're going to have a ton more questions for me, but just one of the things I share with my clients is we see stories like mine and others, and we even see our big dream, and it gets overwhelming because we feel so far from that point in our life, but we want it so bad. And what I say is, okay, yeah, put that dream on your vision board, and because I want you to get it out of your head. I want you to start to create it, but kind of take a step back and block that big picture out because it gets overwhelming, and just look at the next couple steps that we need to take. And that's it. Like, that starts to create the clarity for me and my clients, is letting go of the overwhelm and focusing on what's right in front of you. So when I first got started, that looked like I had a local boutique that was asking for products that I was just making for myself and my kids. She saw me in her store and she wanted to buy it. Guess what? I didn't even have a business. And the idea of creating a business was just like, are you kidding me? I'm a mom. Can't you see how busy I am? And she looked me straight in the eyes and said, I understand how busy you are, but someday these kids are going to grow up and they're going to be in school, and you will have time on your hands, and you're going to wish that you had done something with these gifts and these talents of yours. And she gave me an immense gift in that moment, Sarah. She helped me go into the future and to feel the regret I would feel by not pursuing my gifts and my talents. And I really had not confronted that before, and it hurt. It really did not feel good. And I just felt like that doesn't feel right to me. And God kind of confirmed that for me. It was like, yeah, Katie, you need to do something about this.
This is one of probably my favorite stories of yours, is sitting in that boutique. And I think it just shows people what is possible, because that Katie that was sitting in that store when she said, I want this product, what was your brain saying?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I don't have a business. I don't even know how to create a business. I wouldn't even know how to get your money from you. There was so much. And who am I to make a product that somebody else I don't even know purchases? Like, what if they don't actually like it? That's not right. And I had a lot of doubt and fear. And also, as a mother, I had a lot of doubt and fear. If I go and pursue this and I'm taking my time to make something for this store, that's pulling me away from my kids. And I had a lot of doubt and fear around that, and mom guilt big time. That was just asking the question, well, here was the biggest fear of all, Sarah, is if I do this for you and other stores too, if I pursue a business, is that going to pull me away from my divine purpose? Am I going to end up in a place I wasn't planning on ending up, and that God didn't intend for me to plan up? That terrified me.
Isn't it fascinating? Because my heart is racing hearing this part, because I think sometimes we have this feeling that there's no way that business could be part of God's plan for us.
Oh, totally. I was right there.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
There's no way. There's no way. He just intended me to go get really good at something at school and get that degree and then just be a mom. And again, like, for some people that's awesome and that's great, but he wasn't letting that be enough for me. And it was actually frustrating me. He kept dropping these opportunities in my lap, and I was frustrated. I'm like, I did everything you told me to do. I got married in the temple. I got my awesome degree. I did really, really well in school. And now I'm a mother. I've got my second I had two at the time when this was happening. I've got 2 kids. Are you kidding me? You want me to start a business? I can barely brush my teeth during the day.
Amen. Amen. And this is what brings to a real transformation that you teach so powerfully that I am dying to get on this recording, because you actually believe business is a pretty huge part of God's
Yes.
plan.
Yes. Can I share that with
What?
you?
Please. I'm dying to hear your deeper thoughts on it.
Well, I'll give you the short version of this a story. And I don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead. You can stop me, Sarah. But I did make product for that woman, and I started making it for pretty much all the boutiques in Portland. Then I flew to San Francisco. Then I went to Seattle, and I started to get this base. And then my husband and I developed a game-changing product. That first product was a hand-sewn goods. It was a baby carrier. But we got the idea for a product that would need to be manufactured overseas. And so in order to make that happen, we had to get a bunch of orders all at once. So we take it to this trade show and nobody buys it. It was devastating. I'm telling the short version. We spent 2 years on it. We were getting patents on it. Nobody bought it.
Well, let's remind everybody what your family was eating during this time because of the
food
financial.
storage. I was so good at grinding wheat. I was making 4 loaves of bread a week. We were eating rice and beans. It was literally food storage for almost 2 years. And so it was in the middle of all of that it failed and nobody bought. I was talking to buyers from Target and Nordstrom and other big .coms at the time. This was like 10 years ago. And they were all interested, but nobody placed an order. And I was devastated. I came home and I told my husband, I failed, it failed, nobody wants it. And he listened to me replay the whole story. And he said, wait a minute, Katie, they came into the booth, they talked to you, they asked you all these questions. They were asking you things like, do you carry insurance? What's your retail package look like? What are your wholesale pricing? What are your lead times? Do you have testing? They were asking me all those questions. And my answer pretty much was, no. I didn't know any of that stuff. And so when he heard that, he said, Katie, they didn't tell you no. They just asked you a bunch of questions that we didn't have answered. All we have to do is answer those questions and they'll all purchase this. Answer those questions and we'll be shipping this thing all over the world. He said, you didn't fail. You brought us a perfect blueprint to success. And it sounded so crazy, Sarah, but in my heart, I knew it was right. I was so tired. I was done grinding the wheat. I wanted him to go and get my dream job, but for him,
yes,
right, where he's bringing home a giant salary. I wanted the easy way out. And fortunately, he just said, no, we're right there, Katie. It took another year, but we take it to this trade show and it exploded. And it just was blowing my mind.
So tell me, I love this part of the story where, and it's a little bit of a footnote where you say, well, it still took another year after this conversation with Ben, right? Her husband's name is Ben, and he's also an amazing coach. It still took another year. So tell me where you were in that year and tell me where God was in that year.
Oh, man.
It couldn't have been fun.
No, it was not fun. It was extremely hard because we had another child in that year.
Oh, okay. Detail. Okay.
3 kids, and they were ages like 5, 3, and newborn. And yeah, it was overwhelming. It was exhausting. And continually, Sarah, I wanted to let it all go. I wanted to live the life that I could see my friends living. They were all buying nice houses and nice cars, and we were barely getting by, and it was really frustrating. And there were times when I wanted to because see, my husband wasn't necessarily pursuing his career. He had a job, but he was not being paid what he was worth because he was not interested in that for the long run. And so he actually liked the job he had because it paid him well enough, but it gave him time to pursue other opportunities that we were creating for ourselves. And so where was I at? Oh my gosh, I was drowning in all the shoulds. He should go get a better job. I shouldn't be pursuing this opportunity. I should be spending more time with my kids. I was just living in all of this belief that there was one predetermined path for me and that I was choosing to veer off of that path. Over and over again, I was feeling that in my head. But in my heart, I knew that wasn't true. I didn't want to admit it, and it scared me a lot of the times. But the reason I kept pursuing and kept going is just at the end of the day, God wouldn't let me let it go. I wanted to let it go. I wanted to be done with it. It was hard. was pushing me beyond my capacity every day. Every day I was doing things I had never done before. I was on the phone with factories. I was on the phone with wholesalers. I was on the phone with retailers. I was on the phone with people who were going to be printing my boxes. It was just, I had no idea what I was doing. There was not a blueprint for this. And I was just, every day I was having to kind of reinvent myself.
I just am dying, because that is a really, really long time with a lot of pressures and a lot of possibly cultural pressure of like.
Totally.
Right. I mean,
yes.
we're pretty honest about that here. Those cultural pressures of like, well, what are you doing with those three young kids?
You consider the pressure from your own parents, from your in-laws. And by the way, they're all super supportive, but there's still kind of this unspoken pressure of, okay, yeah, this is cute and fun what you're pursuing, but can't you see that the family, needs clothes and diapers, and we were barely meeting those needs. And so at times we would take a look at our life and ask the question, are we crazy? Are we crazy for doing this? Is this going to get us to where we want to go? Something that my husband and I really value is freedom and independence. And he could just see that for him, pursuing a career where somebody else is paying his salary, it just wasn't the freedom that he wanted. I know for a lot of people that is freedom, and that's great, but for him, that just wasn't freedom. He wanted the freedom to pursue his ideas and to pursue his opportunities. And he wanted the same for me too, by the way. Fortunately for me, I was married to somebody who could see my potential when I could not. And that was such a gift for me. And I really feel like this is what I do for my clients, is they can't see the bigger opportunity that's in front of them because they're so stuck in that phase that I was in, right? In the grinding the wheat and feeding the family. And it just feels like, is there even a way beyond this? And that's what he did for me. And that is the opportunity that we have too, is to take a step back and look at who God created us to be. I came to, that was the story I was going to tell you. I'm jumping back to a question that you asked me and I got off track.
Yeah, you're great. Let's hear it.
Well, we had that really big success finally. Everybody buys. We essentially generate over 2 million in revenue in 12 months. It was massive when it finally took off. But at the same time, anybody who has a business that's growing knows that the business always needs more money. So even though we'd done 2 million, to keep growing, we needed more cash. And so we were talking with some potential investors, and we were getting things already at the factory to scale up. And they were going to help us raise $1 million with a $10 million valuation. And they had the network. And that network was even liquid. They had the cash. It was a no-brainer, Sarah. And it was happening any day now. And it was just exciting because then I could finally pay myself what I was worth. And it was just going to be like the most exciting piece of the whole story for me personally. And because my husband was traveling so much, he was in Taiwan for like 4 weeks, and then he was in Amsterdam, and then he was in Germany, and he'd been traveling for almost a month and a half, and he had to go back to Asia.
In association with this business idea.
All
right?
in association with Pudge. Yes, it had really exploded. And he just said, that's too long to be away from the family. And I said, hey, what if we all come? This has been a dream of ours. And guess what? We can make it happen right now to travel with the whole family. We'll all go and live over there for a month. And how cool would that be? And he was like, okay, but I can't figure it out. And I said, don't worry, I'll figure it out. And within 1 week, Sarah, I'd gotten the kids' passports. We were packed. We were on the plane and on our way to Taipei, Taiwan. So we're in Taiwan, totally disconnected from the world, by the way, because it was like 8 years ago.
How have I never heard this story?
Oh my gosh, Sarah.
I'm on the edge of my seat. Okay, Taiwan.
There's so much more. Okay, so we're in Taiwan. Like, everyone thinks I'm crazy. I remember running into a friend at Target that I hadn't seen in a while, and her name was Anne. She's like, hey, how's everything going? I'm like, great, we're going to Taiwan in 2 days. And I was like getting supplies because I was going to be homeschooling the kids. And she said to me, what does the school district think of this? Because I was pulling them out of school for a month. And I said, I don't know. I didn't ask the school district for any permission. We're going. And like, everyone just thought we were crazy. And I don't speak Chinese. My kids don't speak Chinese. My husband doesn't speak Chinese. But we go over to Taiwan. I found us a place to stay for a month. It was in the financial district. It was not too far from the Taipei 101, which is the third tallest building in the world, by the way. So you can imagine like the busyness of the streets and just kind of what that environment is for a 7, 5, and 3-year-old.
Oh my word.
Like, it's like cement city. And we get there and we're in a 300 square foot apartment that's like a studio. So there's not even a bedroom. If you want to be alone, you have to just go into the tiny bathroom. That's the only door in the place. And I'm homeschooling the kids, and my husband is off somewhere on this island, and it's just me and the 3 kids. And a week into it, I'm like, holy cow, what have I done? It was just
because you're almost locked in, like
locked
I can't
in,
go anywhere.
totally locked
I don't know
in.
where I'm going.
And I was afraid to go anywhere in the city because I didn't even have a stroller, and there weren't any parks. It just was, and I didn't even speak the language. I didn't know if I'd be able to get us back to our apartment. And so all of a sudden I'm like in this prison with my 3 boys who want to wrestle on the bed. And any mom knows that that's just going to end up with somebody splitting their head open on the windowsill.
And
so I'm in the middle of all of this.
So.
I have to share all this because I'm in the middle of all of this, and I'm just starting to get my legs under me and start to figure out the city. And we're just starting to leave the apartment and like go for adventures. When my husband comes home one day and he said, I just talked with the investors and they're not doing the deal. In fact, they said that they want to see this company burn. And I was like, what? And keep in mind, Sarah, we had just generated over $2 million. We went from like nothing to over 2 million. We were rock stars all of a sudden in the industry. We'd been featured on the Ellen Show, the Rachel Ray Show. Like within months, we'd been featured on those places. We were named Product of the Year by Pregnancy and Newborn Magazine. And I was like, they want to see the company burn. And keep in mind, the Katie that we talked about at the beginning, who thought she was a nothing and a nobody and not really important in the world, finally like felt some importance in her life, and finally felt like I was doing something that had meaning in the world. And I was getting emails from people all over the world who were saying, I was so terrified to bathe my baby, and you finally created an environment where I can actually bond with my child now. It was like, it was more than just product for me. It was a vehicle for me to achieve my talents and skills and abilities and really to grow and to develop. And I was finally feeling good about all of those things when they said, yeah, we're not raising the money and we want to see this company burn. And Sarah, I was devastated. This is the first time I've told this story and not cried. I was devastated. And more than anything, Sarah, I was so mad at God. I was so mad at him because he over and over again would not let me let it go and kept telling me, no, I want you to pursue this. I want you to develop these talents and these skills and these abilities of yours. And you saw what I had to walk through to get there. And to have it all being ripped out from underneath me, and I was powerless. There was nothing I could do to stop these men from like letting my company just be destroyed. And I was, like I said, I was so mad at God. And I was asking him questions like, why did you have me pursue this? If you were just going to rip it out from underneath me, if you knew this was going to happen, why'd you just lead me to the edge of a cliff? It didn't make any sense to me. It was finally taking off, and here it was being ripped out from underneath me. And like I said, I was powerless. And there was this moment where I just couldn't even function. My husband had come home, shared all of this with me, and I couldn't function. And my kids, by the way, are still wrestling on the bed as we're trying to talk. I think we closed ourselves in the bathroom to talk about this. And it just didn't make any sense. And he was asking me, he's like, what do I tell them? And I'm like, I can't even function right now. What do we tell them? I don't even, I can't even think. And he could see how affected I was and in what a terrible place I was. And he said, why don't I take the boys out and you can have some time to think and pray. Oh, I love that this is an LDS audience because I can go really deep on this for everybody. And so he did. He took the boys and left, and I was in our studio alone, and I was so full of rage and anger at these investors and at God. I was so frustrated. It was such a foreign feeling for me because I'm normally a really happy person, and I can usually be really optimistic and, oh, we'll figure it out. But I just didn't see any way out of the situation, and it was so confusing to me. I felt so disoriented. And so I have this practice where, especially when I'm needing an urgent answer to prayer, I kneel, I pray, I'm very specific in my prayers, and I open the scriptures, and wherever they lay, I just start reading, and God speaks to me, Sarah. And I'd had so many experiences of this, specifically with my business, where he was helping me find routing numbers for my banking in the middle of the night for somebody in Japan, and like so many random things that he answered those prayers so specifically. So I had faith in that. But I dropped to my knees. I didn't even know what to pray about. I was so angry and I was so full of rage. And I told him, I don't even know what to pray for. And I was so confused because of the hate and anger that I was feeling, that I finally decided to pray for peace. Help me feel peace. If I can feel peace, maybe I can start to find my footing again. And so I prayed for peace. And I opened my scriptures and they land at Isaiah 53. And I was so mad. I was so mad. Isaiah, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know I don't know the scriptures. This is like Greek to me. I was so mad. And the Spirit said, Katie, read it. And I did. And Isaiah 53, what is it about? It's the most beautiful scriptures about the Savior and how he was betrayed by his own. And in that moment, I went from feeling so alone in the world to knowing that there was somebody else who had experienced this feeling of losing it all, this feeling of rage and anger and devastation. I wasn't alone. And it suddenly wasn't about the business anymore. It wasn't about the brand and the products, which is what I had been so focused on. It wasn't about that. And through that and some prayer, and by the way, I have to share this other piece of it because it's so beautiful. My husband comes home, I share this experience with him, and he can see that it's changed me and that I'm transformed and I'm at peace. And he doesn't have that peace yet. And he says, good for you, Katie. That's awesome. But I still don't know what to tell them. And that night, after we put the kids to bed, he said, can we do that again, but do it for me? And so we put the kids down, we pray, we open the scriptures and start reading where they land. And anybody who knows the scriptures really well will know where this is going. It landed in the Book of Mormon this time. Mosiah 14, I believe. I might be a little bit off, but I'm pretty sure it's Mosiah 14, which is word for word Isaiah 53. It was the exact same scripture, but in the Book of Mormon.
Wow.
I just started sobbing as I read that because I didn't know that it was being quoted word for word in the Book of Mormon. And as I read it, I just started crying and I looked up at him and I said, this is exactly what he told me earlier today. And I didn't know that it was quoted in the Book of Mormon. It was so beautiful and
undeniable
that was the answer, right? And so as I reflected on that then and the days after, I kept asking myself, what is he saying to me? And I was so confused because here it was facing the reality, the very real reality that I could potentially lose this company that was so hard to build and that was just taking off. And I just was asking why did you lead me down this road if it was just going to be taken from me? It was still so confusing. Even though I was feeling peace, it didn't make sense. And what he helped me to see was, Katie, you thought it was about the company. You thought it was about the brand and the products, and that's why I was having you go in this direction. But it wasn't. It was about you. And that business was simply a vehicle for you to become the woman I had created you to be. And if you need to get out of that vehicle, that's okay. I showed you how to make it. We can make another one. So that set me free, Sarah. I didn't realize at the time I had attached my value and my worth to this company. And when that company was being destroyed, I was being destroyed. That's what was happening to me. And he helped me see that it's not about the company, Katie. It's about you and your eternal progression. And sometimes we get in a vehicle and sometimes it's time to get out of that vehicle. And I in that moment was able to separate my worth and my value from the company, which was really interesting because I was then able to go back to the investors and say, okay, you want to burn this? Great, you can burn it. I'm going to go create something new. And it was interesting because suddenly because I was not so needy of it, they backed off big time. And anyways, we were able to come to a resolution. but it was only because I was no longer needy of the company. And God helped me see the true purpose. And it's so important that I share that lesson, because this is the very lesson I bring with me to help people like you in your business and all of my clients. Is I understand the business is there to support you and to help you in your eternal progression. And that's what it's about.
I am so grateful for your vulnerability, on your failures, on your anger, on the dynamic that brings into a marriage and risk, and how God speaks to you. I'm so grateful that you would be so willing to share those things, because man, it would be a lot more fun to talk about the millions and millions of dollars that this is produced, right? But this is so helpful. And I'm a photographer. And so I think back and I'm picturing the studio in Taiwan, and I'm picturing this prayer that's happening. And I mean, it's all very like heavenly when I'm watching this minute. And this was a huge pivot point for you. Massive. And I know so many in business feel like business is chock full of those pivot points. Often there's a pivot point at the very, very beginning, which is a lot of the entrepreneurs I work with that are at that beginning of like, well, should I start? And you had hustled and hustled and hustled, and it was like, I've done everything you've said, and now wait, like what? I thought that, the righteous were blessed and all this kind of stuff, that those pivot points. And so what, one of your greatest gifts that I have benefited from, and thousands of other entrepreneurs have benefited from, is your ability to help business owners make decisions with power and clarity.
Yeah.
And that is your gift. And we're going to dive in another episode to some other things on how that is accomplished. But how does someone in that pivot point of high drama, of neediness, of aloneness, how do you make clear, powerful decisions in that moment?
This is such a good question. For me in that moment, how did I make a decision? I had to take a step back, kind of out of the drama and the emotion. That was part of why finding peace was so important, as I was just swimming in the emotion and I couldn't get out of it. And so peace was the doorway out of the rage and the anger, so that I could be centered, so that I could feel the Spirit, so I could receive that direction. And it's not like God then said, okay, now this is what I want you to go and do. I wish it would have been that easy. But the only way I was able to get any sort of clarity was because I was looking at the bigger picture. Before, I had thought it was about Katie having influence in the world because she had an important brand and a company, and people thought she was important. And that's what I thought it was about at the time. And when I let go of the business being so connected to my identity, Sarah, it was almost like an Abraham and Isaac experience, where it was like, are you willing to sacrifice the thing you value so much right now? I mean, our business is like a child. And in that moment, I was being asked to sacrifice it. Was I willing to let it go? And I got to that place where I said, yes, I can let this go. And that was not easy. It was so hard. But why? Because I could see the bigger picture. I could see where God was taking me. And that was that it wasn't about building this big business. It was about expanding Katie's capacity. And it was coming to the understanding that there is immense potential inside of each and every one of us. And the purpose of the business is to give us opportunities to step into that potential more and more, right? To expand our capacity, to expand our capabilities. I was learning so many things in this business. I told you that, I didn't have the roadmap. Besides my husband just nudging me, I didn't have someone say, now go do this and go talk to this person. I didn't have that. I was having to do a lot of problem solving and figuring out and leadership, if you will. And so that is the thing that brought me clarity then and brings me clarity now, is seeing big picture. Where am I going? Okay, this is about me becoming who God created me to be. And what I think is such a big deal right now actually is not. It doesn't even matter in the big scheme of things. And that that clarity within my head helped me look at it in a non-emotional way. I was no longer attached to it. In my mind, I'd already let it go. And so I could look at it very objectively and without my emotions getting in the way. And that is the way that we find clarity.
Is to be able to detach from it and
Yes.
recognize the big picture is actually our progression instead of this specific project or endeavor.
Yeah. It's just a piece that's helping me move along.
Oh, that's a whole different world, Katie. That's a whole different world. I love this. I love this so much. And why specifically? You work with a lot of female entrepreneurs. I'm sure you have lots of guys too. Are they mainly female?
I actually do have men too, but primarily I attract women because of stories like this, right?
Right. We're so in your corner. Yeah. So why is it that women in particular struggle with the idea that part of their progression, their progressive path may involve business?
This
Especially
is a good question.
Because shouldn't motherhood also bring us there? I mean, I'm a mom of 4. Like,
totally.
This is a battle. Why do we struggle with it?
For me, I can just speak for myself personally. For me personally, one of the reasons I struggled with it so much is the women I admired and looked up to and aspired to be like weren't business women. And I didn't see it modeled for myself in my life. That was a big part of why I kept saying no every time God was dropping opportunities in my lap, is I was like, no, I want to be like these women who I have always looked up to and respected, and they don't have a business. And honestly, as I would read business books or hear stories, again, this was 10 years ago, social media wasn't quite popularized yet, but you would hear stories or read stories where the opposite would happen. Their marriage would fall apart as their business got bigger, as their life got more complex, as their maybe head got more bigger. I don't know. But it scared, that piece of it really scared me, because I had to confront that within myself and say, is it possible to build a successful business and have a beautiful family? Is it possible that this could strengthen my marriage and not create a wedge that drives us apart? And I hadn't really seen a lot of that modeled. And that was a big part of why I kept saying no in the beginning, is it, in my mind, it was incompatible. And God taught me a really powerful lesson, and he helped me see that as a product designer, I'm a really good problem solver, and I'm able to create things that don't currently exist. I'm able to create them in my mind and explore them and kind of develop them on paper, and then go and actually make it a reality, right? Mm-hmm. And he showed me that, Katie, you already have the model. You just need to do that with your life. You don't see the woman that you want to become out there in the world, but that's okay. I can show you how to create her. And so I literally started to create this woman. I had pictures on the back of my bathroom mirror of women who I thought looked successful business-wise, because I didn't know what that looked like. Also having 3-4 kids at your side. What does that actually look like? What does that woman do? And that's what I really started to pursue, Sarah, is I hadn't seen her modeled, but that didn't mean I couldn't create her. And so I literally started to create myself. And I started to say to myself, okay, well, this woman takes care of herself, because if she doesn't, life goes to pot, and I have no patience for these kids. So I started waking up really early to go exercise. Before then, I hadn't really been an exerciser. I hadn't been somebody who went running, but I started to see where I wanted to go, and then I just started to reverse engineer it. Okay, this woman needs to take care of herself, and she needs to dress nice. And I had to be really creative because I didn't have much of a budget. And so I started making some clothes for myself that would allow me to be presentable at a trade show, for example. And I just started to create this woman who I was starting to see in my future. I wanted to be this woman, which meant I had to start being her now. What does she look like? How does she act when she gets on the phone? Does she tell everybody, oh, sorry, my kids are screaming? No, that wasn't what I wanted for myself. And so I made sure I was taking calls at a time when I wasn't going to have screaming kids in the background. That was the choice I had made. This was the woman I wanted to create for myself.
Oh, this is so like product design and progression. Like it's just all going wild in my brain right now of how, and you're very much a pioneer.
Yes.
Very much a pioneer. I don't think that serious, big thinking businesswomen that are members of the church are super visible right now.
Yeah.
It's not a real visible market. And so I think that, I just love that you are that pioneer that is moving in that direction to help there be more models out there of what is possible and what that looks like. And I think we can all take those patterns of what does that look like and how can I start now straight into our lives today. I am so thrilled that you would be here with me. And I know in another episode, we're going to dive even deeper into what you're doing and what spirituality has brought and all those things. But I am so grateful that you have shared these powerful moments, these impact moments, these moments with God and how he's taught you. And I'm just so grateful for your vulnerability and your desire to share the realities of business and member of the church and mom. It's just been a delight.
Sarah, thank you so much. I just feel honored to be here, honestly, because I can so specifically tell my story so deeply, because I really feel like the listener understands, right? She's been there before, she's in it, and had these conflicting views and thoughts of like, what is my life supposed to look like as a wife, as a mother, and as an entrepreneur? And so much of what we talk about with my clients is how all of this works together. And we don't have to compartmentalize our life. We don't have to pretend when we're in a business meeting, pretend that we're not a mother. I always chose to bring it with me. And, when I go to a meeting with Target, I'm going to hug the buyers. I don't shake their hand. And I've just made that choice to bring Katie everywhere I go. And it's just exciting to be able to share the stories that helped me get to that point where I had that faith and belief in myself and who God created me to be, and allows me to show up in the world this way. And my hope is that it's inspiring all of your listeners to do the same for themselves.
I am so on board. I'm so on board. And something that's marvelous about you is you are unafraid to dream big. Unafraid. And in fact, you've been super nice to prepare a little free experience for our listeners here. Listeners, you need more of Katie in your life. You already know that. If you go to KatieRichardson.com, okay, KatieRichardson.com, you're going to see a way to get her How to Make Your Wildest Dreams Come True series. It is not to be missed. So if you are at any of those pivot points, if you are the one that's made $2 million and you're crying in your studio apartment, this is the audio series that you need. If you are someone that's at the very beginning and you're thinking, I may need to take a jump, this is such a foundational experience for you. So thank you again, Katie, so much. Make sure you head over to KatieRichardson.com, download her How to Make Your Wildest Dreams Come True, and she'll get you started on the right foot. Thanks again for being here. If you enjoyed this podcast, I know you would enjoy my course, the Funnel Blueprint Challenge. What in the world do funnels have to do with you thinking bigger as a woman of faith, business, and motherhood? Well, my friend, everything. Funnels are just a fancy word for a brilliant business plan that grants you more money, more free time, and more impact without sacrificing your role as a woman of faith and family. My favorite part about funnels? Well, building a plan that is serving every single customer. Customers who have $0 to spend and those who are ready to invest thousands in you. The Funnel Blueprint Challenge, available at sarahgracelife.com/challenge, is filled with 45 days of step-by-step guidance on starting, growing, and expanding your business right. This is the exact blueprint I use to build funnels for high-end clients. No more shoot from the hip strategies with your marketing idea of the week. Get your funnel built with me in 45 days in the Funnel Blueprint Challenge so that you can share your awesomeness with the world. Let me be awesome at teaching you funnels so that you can be awesome at what you do. Head to sarahgracelive.com/challenge to register. Thanks for listening to the podcast.